The room reeked of power. Not the loud, obvious kind, no. This was quiet power. Polished mahogany, subtle cologne, leather chairs that cost more than her monthly salary. Every man at that table had a title that echoed down halls. Every voice carried weight. Every laugh was calculated. And yet, none of them saw her. Mandy Harris walked in holding 6 black binders. Her steps were steady, her eyes down. No one looked up. No one paused, not even for a second. To them, she wasn't part of the meeting. She wasn't a strategist or a deal maker or even a risk. She was a convenience, a well-trained, well-dressed background prop, a secretary, and that's all they thought she'd ever be. Nathan Carryle leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with arrogance. "Mandy," he said with a smirk that could slice glass, "you're just a secretary, not a lawyer. Maybe stick to staplers, yeah." The room chuckled, not loudly, just enough to sting. A few executives looked down, others looked away. No one spoke. And Mandy, she froze. She didn't frown, didn't cry, didn't say a word. On the outside, she was stone, but inside, something cracked. Not loudly, but deeply. Not in shame, she'd endured worse. This time, it cracked because she knew something they didn't, and he just humiliated her in front of the only people who mattered in that company. That's the moment her silence became strategy. 8 years. That's how long Mandy Harris had been showing up early, staying late, fixing contracts, correcting numbers executives were too proud to double-check. She remembered every clause, every deadline, every detail no one else bothered to read. And yet, not once had anyone asked, "What do you think, Mandy?" Her name was only used when coffee needed refilling, when binders needed stapling. When someone needed a quiet ghost to clean up corporate messes without leaving fingerprints. But on that day, she had spoken. She had found a mistake, a real one, page 312, subsection D, a dormant license clause that could blow up a $90 million deal. She didn't scream, she didn't panic, she pointed at it with calm professional clarity, and they laughed. That was the moment when something inside her shifted, something heavy, something real. It wasn't about rage. It was about worth. And finally, Mandy realized she didn't need their permission to matter. Buried deep in the contract was a single clause. It wasn't bolded, it wasn't flagged, it wasn't even on a page anyone ever turned to. Page 312, subsection D, the dormant license clause. A legal loophole created decades ago, meant as a safeguard, but never deleted. And what did it say? That if any third party submitted a legal claim before the official close of the deal and paid just $1, they could legally assume control of the company's core licensing rights. $1. Just $1. That was all it would take to stop a $90 million acquisition in its tracks. And Mandy saw it because she always read what others ignored. Nathan leaned forward, voice sharp enough to cut air. "I don't pay you to think, Mandy." Just like that. 7 words. Delivered with a smirk. And wrapped in decades of corporate arrogance. The room went silent. Mandy stood still, her hands by her sides, her mouth closed, but inside, the silence cracked. Because in that moment, something finally clicked. He wasn't just dismissing her opinion, he was denying her existence. He was saying, "You don't belong here. You don't matter. You are not one of us." And that's when Mandy realized, truly realized, no one was going to protect her. Not HR, not legal, not the system, not even fairness. If she wanted to be seen, if she wanted to matter, if she wanted to defend what she knew was right, she had to do it herself. The office was merely empty. Lights dimmed, hallways silent, only the hum of old printers and the occasional cuff from the janitor. Mandy stayed behind. She told them she was organizing notes from the meeting. What she was really doing was building a weapon, not one made of anger, but of paper, process, and precision. She made copies of the contract, highlighted the dormant license clause, cross-referenced every legal reference tied to it. Then she pulled out a manila envelope from her drawer, one she had saved for years, and began writing. No drama, no panic, just deliberate, focused movements. By midnight, she wasn't tired. She was awake in a way she hadn't been in years. Because this time, Mandy Harris wasn't going to let them laugh her into silence. She had the clause, she had the timing, and she had a plan. No driver, no lawyer, no press. Just Mandy Harris, wearing a navy blue blazer, her hair pinned back, and a folder tucked under her arm. She walked 2 blocks from the office, past the coffee shop, past the bank where she used to eat lunch on the steps, and into a quiet notary office with peeling paint and a ticking wall clock. She approached the counter, unfolded the contract, laid down a single $1 bill, and slid across the claim form. The woman behind the desk looked up, brows raised. "You sure you want to file this?" Mandy smiled. "Absolutely." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make a scene. She just signed her name, deliberate, precise, and legal. And in that one signature, she changed the course of a $90 million deal. The notary stamped the paper. Click, snap, seal. Just like that, it was done. No fireworks, no headlines, no cameras rolling. But on that Tuesday afternoon at 12:47 p.m., Mandy Harris officially became the legal license holder for the core technology inside the $90 million acquisition. And with that, the deal Cariel Holdings' crown jewel was no longer complete, not without her. She walked out of the office slowly, felt the breeze on her face, held the envelope against her chest. No one knew yet. But they would. She wasn't stealing. She wasn't blackmailing. She had followed every letter of the law. And that made her dangerous. Because nothing frightens the powerful more than someone who knows the rules better than they do. Mandy stepped back into the office like it was any other day. The receptionist was scrolling through her phone. Someone from marketing was laughing by the vending machine. The CFO was arguing with his assistant over lunch orders. Everything looked the same, but it wasn't. Inside her bag was a notarized document. Inside that document was a single clause. And that clause meant the entire company was now walking on a legal minefield. She sat at her desk, opened her inbox, typed an email to herself. Subject, private archive, attachment, filed, claim, timestamped. Status, complete. No alarms, no whispers. No one suspected a thing. But Mandy, her mind was no longer at her desk. It was 10 steps ahead, because once the boardroom found out, the storm would begin. It started with a phone call. Nathan Cariel's voice echoed across the glass walls of the executive floor. "What do you mean the license is frozen?" Everyone outside the office froze. Heads turned, mouths stopped mid-sentence. Even the interns stopped walking. Inside the boardroom, the lawyers looked pale. One of them, an older man with silver-rimmed glasses, muttered, "Page 312, dormant clause. It was filed, legally, yesterday." Nathan blinked. "Filed? By who?" No answer, just silence. Another lawyer finally whispered, "We don't know, yet." Nathan stood slowly, his jaw clenched, his hands flat on the glass table. "I want names, now. Who the hell did this?" Panic had arrived, and for the first time in years, Nathan Cariel was no longer in control. Nathan slammed the boardroom door behind him. He didn't sit. He didn't breathe. He barked into the intercom, "Get Mandy Harris in my office, now!" Silence across the floor. Whispers started crawling down hallways. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. Mandy stood from her desk, smoothed her blazer, and walked straight, steady, silent through the glass corridor. She could feel the eyes on her back, but she didn't flinch. When she entered Nathan's office, the door clicked shut like a trap. He stood by the window, arms crossed, not looking at her. "Sit," he said, without turning around. She sat, calm, composed, unshaken. "Did you file the dormant license clause?" Mandy met his eyes. Yes, I did. He scoffed. You had no right. She didn't blink. I had the right written into your contract. You just never read it. The air turned electric. Nathan stepped closer. You realize what you've done. Mandy's voice was quiet, dead calm. I protected your company from a $90 million mistake. What you do with that is your decision, not mine. And for the first time, Nathan didn't know what to say. Nathan finally spoke. Look, if this is about money, name your price. I'll make this disappear. Quietly. Mandy tilted her head, eyes calm, voice sharper than a scalpel. I didn't file that claim for money. Nathan blinked. Then what do you want? She leaned forward slightly and said the one thing he never expected. I want to be seen. The room fell silent, not just quiet, but hollow, because Nathan finally understood this wasn't about a loophole. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about taking him down. It was about every meeting she sat through, invisible, every correction she made, uncredited, every time she was spoken to like a tool, not a person. Mandy didn't want cash. She wanted respect. And for the first time, Nathan Carcile had no comeback, no words, no defense, just the sound of power slipping. The first strike came fast. At exactly 5:03 p.m., Mandy received an email from HR. Subject, formal investigation into internal conduct. Action required. Immediate response. Her screen froze. Access denied. Please contact IT support. It blinked in red. Her files were locked. Her inbox wiped. Her calendar empty. And just like that, the company she'd served for 8 years had turned its machine against her. She wasn't escorted out. They weren't that obvious. But they didn't need to be. The message was clear. You crossed a line. Now we'll erase you. It was classic corporate warfare. Smear before they fear. But Mandy didn't panic, because she had already seen this coming. They thought she'd panic, cry, beg. They forgot who Mandy Harris had become. Within 20 minutes of the HR email, she forwarded it to her attorney. Yes, her attorney. She'd hired him 3 days ago. She already knew this would happen. She was just waiting for it. At 6:12 p.m., a signed legal letter was delivered to HR. Subject, notice of retaliation from legal counsel for Mandy Harris. Summary, any attempt to suspend, discredit, or isolate Ms. Harris without evidence will result in immediate legal action. It was clean. It was sharp. It was powerful. And it was her move. The girl they once laughed at for printing contracts was now quoting legal precedent against their entire HR department. She wasn't defending herself. She was drawing lines they could no longer cross. And with that, the rules of the game changed. The next morning, Mandy was called into HR. 2 people were waiting, the head of human resources and a corporate lawyer she'd never seen before. They gestured for her to sit. The HR director folded her hands neatly and spoke in rehearsed corporate tone. We've suspended your system access, pending investigation. Mandy said nothing. She reached into her bag, pulled out a crisp envelope, slid it across the table. The lawyer opened it, read, paused. Is this a threat, Miss Harris? Mandy leaned back in her chair, voice calm, expression unreadable. No, it's a notification. Silence. No one moved. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop. And in that moment, they realized she wasn't just fighting back. She was 10 steps ahead. And they were the ones scrambling. An emergency meeting. The calendar invites were sent without warning. No agenda, no explanation, just a single word in bold. Mandatory. Executives walked fast. Whispers swirled like smoke through the hallways. Did you hear? Legal's freaking out. Someone froze the license. Some woman from admin filed a claim. What's her name again? Mandy Harris. And just like that, the name they never noticed became the name on everyone's lips. She wasn't the invisible secretary anymore. She was the reason the boardroom door slammed shut. And behind that door, power was trembling. Because no one knew exactly who Mandy Harris was. But suddenly, everyone wanted to. The room was silent. 12 board members sat in a circle. Nathan sat at the far end, shoulders tense, jaw tight. And next to him, Mandy Harris. No suit, no title, no PR team. Just her, and a stack of files in a simple brown folder. Richard Clark, the chairman, cleared his throat. Ms. Harris, you have the floor. Mandy opened the folder, pulled out printed contracts, highlighted clauses, a time-stamped notary form, and a written record of her warning to Nathan days before the deal. Her voice didn't shake. This clause existed in the original agreement, publicly available. I flagged it. I was ignored. So I followed the law and filed it myself. Nothing was done in secrecy. She looked around the room, calm, direct, unflinching. Nathan tried to interrupt. She blindsided the company. Mandy didn't even turn to him. You were notified. You dismissed it. The room froze, and for the first time, the board didn't look at Mandy with confusion. They looked at Nathan with doubt. The meeting didn't last much longer. After Mandy presented her documentation, after the silence had spoken louder than Nathan ever could, the board voted, unanimously. Nathan Carlisle, CEO of Carlisle Holdings, was officially suspended pending legal and ethical review. He stood. No one said a word. No one stopped him as he left the room. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Chairman Clark looked directly at Mandy. Miss Harris, we'd like to invite you to join the Executive Strategy Board as Director of Contract Risk and Governance, effective immediately. The same room that once ignored her now stood up to shake her hand. She didn't smile for the cameras. She didn't cry. She simply nodded and said, "Thank you. I only ever wanted to be heard." It wasn't the biggest office. It didn't have a view of the skyline. There was no mahogany desk, no gold nameplate on the door. Just a small space, a window that faced the alley, and one chair, her chair. But to Mandy Harris, it was more than enough. She hung her credentials on the wall herself, placed her favorite mug, think twice, sign once, on the desk, and sat down quietly. This time, not as a shadow, not as a note-taker, not as an afterthought, but as the one they now listened to first. Mandy could have burned it all down. She had the leverage. She had the legal ground. She had the chance to humiliate everyone who ever ignored her, but she didn't. She rewrote the employee code of conduct. She enforced whistleblower protections. She mandated contract review transparency. And most of all, she made one thing clear. No one gets silenced in this company again. In a boardroom once ruled by ego and fear, Mandy planted something else, dignity. She didn't rise to destroy. She rose so others could stand. The hallway was quiet. Mandy walked past the same people who once looked through her. This time, they stood aside. Some nodded. Some lowered their eyes. One whispered, "Thank you." She didn't smile. She didn't need to, because she knew. She didn't climb the ladder. She redrew the whole building. And as she entered her office, she whispered to herself, "I didn't fight to win. I just refused to lose quietly." Sometimes, silence isn't peace. It's suppression. And respect, it's not something you wait for. It's something you claim by knowing your worth, standing your ground, and refusing to be invisible. Mandy didn't fight with noise. She fought with knowledge, dignity, and quiet defiance. And in doing so, she taught us something powerful. You don't have to scream to be heard. You just have to know your value and never apologize for it. Let Mandy's story remind you, you are never just anything. If Mandy's story moved you, if it reminded you of your own silent battles, don't let this be just another video. Hit subscribe. Share this story. Turn on notifications, because we tell the stories the world tries to overlook. You matter. Your voice matters. And here, we make sure it's heard.